The payments industry moves fast. The economics behind it move even faster. Welcome to On the Wire, a show about the economics of payments, the institutions moving money, and the infrastructure underneath it all. This episode is produced by payware using AI voice synthesis, built from primary research, technical documentation, and real market data. No studio, no hosts, just the content, clearly presented. Let's get into it.
You know, you walk into a coffee shop, you tap your card for a $5 latte, and you just don't even blink. But the shop owner definitely does, because they just lost like 2.5% of that sale to these invisible toll booths.
Yeah, exactly. The traditional payment rails, which is really just the hidden plumbing moving money around, they've always treated that percentage cut like it's some sort of law of physics.
Right. And today, our mission in this deep dive is to look at a stack of industry research that shows how new tech is bypassing those tolls completely. Because looking at the sources, it is just wild how inefficient the old architecture actually is.
It really is. I mean, businesses have tried to get around the expensive card networks by using standard bank transfers, so things like ACH or SEPA, but those take days to actually clear.
Wait, I'm assuming that's just because of how banks batch process everything at night, right?
No,
it's
right.
kind of like a commuter train that refuses to leave the station until every single seat is totally full.
That is a perfect analogy, yeah. They queue up and settle in these massive batches just to save computing power. So they are incredibly cheap, like as low as 10 cents a pop, but you totally sacrifice liquidity.
Okay, so that's the slow cargo ship. And then on the other end, you've got traditional wire transfers, which I guess would be the air freight in this analogy.
Exactly, yeah, the air freight. Wires process individually and they do it fast, but you pay this massive flat premium for that manual processing, anywhere from $15 to $80 just for one transfer.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that is definitely not sustainable for a coffee shop. But the reports also talk about this modern high-speed rail, things like FedNow in the U.S. or SEPA Instant in Europe and PIX in Brazil.
Right, and those are completely different. They aren't batching at night at all.
Yeah.
They act way more like a private digital toll road that just connects two bank vaults directly.
Through real-time ledger updates, right?
Yeah, exactly. They settle bank to bank in literally seconds.
Okay, but wait. If we have this instant direct ledger technology right now, why do we all still default to plastic cards? I mean, cards take 2 to 3 days to settle. The merchant loses a huge cut. So why use a system with half a dozen middlemen?
Well, it's really just the sheer inertia of a 50-year first-mover advantage. I mean, the hardware is already sitting on literally every counter.
Right. We're all just used to it.
Exactly. But the math is finally starting to break that inertia. Let's look at a 10,000 euro transaction. If you run that through a standard card network at a 1.2% fee, the merchant pays 120 euros.
Just to move their own money. And they still have to wait days for it to show up.
Right. Now, standard SEPA would only cost 20 cents, but again, that takes days. But routing that same exact payment through an instant rail might cost a flat 50 euros.
Wait, so that's a flat fee, not a percentage?
Yep, a flat 50 euros, which is 58% cheaper than the card fee. It doesn't scale infinitely with the purchase price. Plus, the money hits their ledger instantly.
And there's no chargeback risk either, right? The sources made a huge point about that.
Oh, absolutely. The chargeback risk practically vanishes.
Yeah.
Because the bank authenticates the user directly inside their own banking app, usually with biometrics, before the money even moves.
So you aren't relying on a merchant trusting a magnetic stripe or a chip? The security is just totally front-loaded.
Exactly. But obviously, businesses can't realistically just rip out their card terminals tomorrow and force everyone to pay through a banking app.
Right, because the transition has to be completely seamless for the actual consumer. We just hate friction.
We do. And that is why the solution happening right now in the software layer is what they call the multi-rail strategy. Smart checkout systems are embedding these dynamic routing engines.
Okay, so what does it actually mean for the checkout process? Does the software just evaluate the transaction in milliseconds and pick the best option?
That's exactly what it does. Think of it like an internet router picking the fastest path for your data. So if a customer is buying a recurring monthly subscription, the software routes it through standard, cheap ACH.
Because immediate settlement doesn't matter for a gym membership or a streaming bill. You just want it to be cheap.
Right, exactly. But if it's a domestic e-commerce purchase, the checkout flow might prompt an instant account-to-account connection, like payware.
Oh, I see. And then it only falls back to the expensive traditional card rails for things like cross-border international checkouts.
Yeah, mostly places where the instant networks haven't fully bridged together yet. And the beauty is, the consumer doesn't even realize the rails are swapping right beneath their feet.
The merchant gets to optimize for cost and speed, and we don't have to deal with any weird new checkout hurdles. That's brilliant.
It really is. And the sources suggest that eventually, this multi-rail selection process will become entirely ubiquitous. Every digital cart will automatically route through the lowest cost, most efficient network, completely behind the scenes.
So we don't have to choose between cheap and slow or fast and expensive anymore. That era is fundamentally over.
I would say so, yes. The technology has finally caught up to the demand for efficiency.
Well, that leaves you with a thought to mull over the next time you reach for your wallet. If frictionless, direct bank-to-bank networks are seamlessly routing our transactions behind the scenes to avoid that swipe tax, will the traditional physical credit card eventually become a completely obsolete relic of the past? Just another slow train we used to wait for.
That's On the Wire, produced by payware, the transaction resolution network for instant A2A payments. This episode was AI generated from payware's published research and documentation. If something sparked a question, the full source material is available at payware.eu. If you work in payments at a bank, an ISV, or a merchant organization, and what you heard is relevant to what you're building, reach out. The conversation doesn't have to stop here. Subscribe to On the Wire wherever you listen to podcasts. The next episode is already waiting.